The Politics podcast is brought to you, as always, by everybody who supports us at patreon.com/JURY. Listen, guys, it has been amazing, and I promised we were going to get more people on here. You weren't just going to have to listen to me prattle on and on and on about whatever the hell I want. We have guests, and thankfully they do that because this can be my living and I can afford to wrangle everybody. So go ahead and check us out. Patreon.com/JURY. But enough of talking about how we do the show. What do you say we start the show?
Politics, politics, politics. Politics, yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Welcome. It is a very special onesie Wednesday here on the Politics program. And not only are we going to talk about all the news in the political world, but this is a special episode. I promised you guys on the last show that we are going to bring Twitter's most friendly slap fight to this podcast. No one else can book this match except for your old boy Jerbs. So I would like to welcome here to the show for the first time Jeff Cannata, of course, DLC, and We Have Concerns, and my co-host on Night Attack and the Weird Things podcast, as well as the Modern Rogue, Brian Brushwood. Welcome, friends, to this very special, enlightening debate of ideas and values to the Politics program.
Dude,
Wait a
thank
minute.
you for having us. Wait, are we not debating?
Wait a minute. You guys do shows together?
Yeah, we do.
The moderator and one of the debaters?
See, you're calling
It's rigged!
right out
It's all rigged!
Fair enough.
I'm really excited to do this. I love that intro because we are all friends, and
yeah.
I think that sometimes on Twitter and on the internet in general, you can lose sight of the fact that friends, people who really care for each other, can have differences of opinion, can express those differences of opinion respectfully, and can actually have a conversation rather than a shouting match. And I hope that we prove that to be true here too.
Although my favorite part of you and me going back on Twitter is all the people who just are cringing and nervous, like, oh, what's happening between people I like?
Well, just to underscore what Jeff said, politics has a very weird way, and it's really shaped how I do this show, a very weird way of kind of getting into the cracks of a relationship. And it really does. I mean, like, you see it in your family. You see it in your friends. Like, people just either avoid the conversation altogether or actually legitimately get mad at people. So what we want to show here, no matter how passionate or differing the opinions, is that everybody can walk off still friends, as you guys have done on Twitter, and I believe will do today. So let me just throw this grenade in here, and then we'll see where it goes. Jeff, why is a third-party vote a wasted vote? Or is a third-party vote a wasted vote?
Man,
Well-
you went straight for the jugular there, man.
Yeah.
I was wanting to start off on, like, what do we agree with? And no, it's like, no.
Ain't nobody got time for that, man. I'm sitting here in a mouse onesie. I'm sweating my nuts off. We got to get to the business.
All right.
I do not think that, in general, a third-party vote is a wasted vote. One of the points that I definitely agree with Brian, and he has expressed over and over to me on Twitter, is that your vote is your own. You can choose to use your vote in any way you want, and in general, a third-party vote is completely within your purview. My position is this election happens to be different in pretty much every respect. And I learned that my third party vote, in 2000 was pretty stupid, it turns out.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that you had regrets. So you voted Nader, and you feel a personal responsibility for helping to usher in the era of George W. Bush.
Correct. And I think that, you know, I think unfortunately this year, because of the tenor of the candidates and the tenor of the general culture around the election, there is this feeling that any third option is better than the two we're looking at, right? The two main party candidates. And I feel, and this is not, this is obviously just a anecdotal and just a feeling that I have, but I think it bears out that a significant portion of the people that express desire to vote for Jill Stein or Gary Johnson really don't know who they are. They just know that they're a third party. And the idea of third party, because I think a lot of us, myself included, feel that more parties would be beneficial to the overall system, and having a viable third party is a positive, a net positive for the whole structure of everything. They think that any third party candidate is better and makes a stronger point. And my position is this year, this election cycle, unfortunately, because we have a cartoon terror as one of the candidates, we just don't have that luxury. And also, I think that if people scratched a little deeper on the actual candidates that are the third party candidates, they would find them to be as objectionable as one of the
I mean,
other two.
that does seem like a bit of a broad generalization, though, right, Jeff? I mean, like, these candidates have been out here for months now, so there's a lot of time for people to familiarize themselves with the issues, or maybe identify core issues that they believe in, no matter what, no matter how flawed
Sure.
the candidates are, right?
I think there's a portion of the people that do that, but would you disagree that there's a significant movement of people that just want a third option and kind of don't care what that is?
Sure. I mean, I also think that there's a lot of people that prefer pineapple on their pizza, right? You know, there's always going to be an element of it. All right, Brian, here's your hard question. Bill Weld came out this morning, or yesterday rather, and said that because this election, much like Jeff just said, is very important and that Trump is so dangerous, he believes that people should vote for Hillary over Trump if it means Trump not getting into office. If the vice presidential candidate on the ticket for which you are likely going to vote is saying that, then why is it wrong or why is it misguided if Jeff says it?
This is interesting because I do have the benefit of actually believing in the policy positions of the Libertarian candidate, and whether or not he performs well on the quiz show that is 24-hour cable news television is irrelevant to me, because he doesn't want to go to war. He wants to legalize drugs. He wants to provide more freedoms, not less, and spend less money. All those things, I love all that, and so I'm at peace with all of that. But beyond that, even if there were parts of that, so let's say Gary Johnson, a guy I genuinely like and a platform that I genuinely support, was out of the picture. And now we only have Jill Stein, somebody who I disagree with on just about everything, but is a third-party candidate and provides another voice. The fact is, even if our country is designed in such a way that sooner or later it will collapse into a two-party system, the two parties don't have to be the Democrats and the Republicans. There was a time that it was the Democrats and the Whigs. The Whig party died. There was a time that there was no Republican Party. A new party was founded. And the Republican Party is a problem. It's got to go away. It's got to go away. So if you are voting for either of the two major parties, you are voting for business as usual. We are in a serious problem in that we are collapsing closer and closer to a dictatorship. We are electing a king because we are ceding presidential powers that were not ever intended. It was never intended that one person can decide, I want to drop a few nukes off the coast of North Korea just to show them that we mean business. That is an actual authority. I want to be able to, assassinate somebody who's an American citizen without a trial because I'm pretty sure he's a terrorist. But we'll never have a trial over that or anything. I'm just going to blow him up and that'll be the end. That is not only is that a power that the president now has, but it's one that has been exercised repeatedly by both the good guys, President Obama, and the bad guys, George W. Bush. This is a problem and it has to stop. And a vote for business as usual is a tacit participation and a tacit acknowledgement that you're okay with that. And that is something from a deeply moral perspective I absolutely cannot abide. And in an election, especially this election, where it's an almost certainty that Hillary Clinton will become the next president, Trump has virtually no chance whatsoever.
Don't you jinx it.
You have a chance. You have a chance to do something very good and offer a chance to take away power from the two-party system, because if any of the third-party candidates get just 5% of the vote, just 5%, they get matching federal funds, they get access, they get to be on the ballot on all 50 states. So if you want business as usual, then yes, vote for either the Crips or the Bloods. If you think that that is the path to destruction and that you need to see a change, then vote for either of the two third parties. Because luckily, we got one that's heavily statist and one that's heavily libertarian. You could take your pick. Personally, I would love it if the Libertarian Party got like 7% of the vote, and all of a sudden, in a matter of 2 or 3 years, all of a sudden the question wasn't this ridiculous left-right paradigm that we have between Republicans and Democrats. One of which wants your pocketbook, the other which wants your genitals. And instead made it about like one group that wants to, in general, give you more freedom, and the other group that, in general, wants to manage your life. I mean, I would love to change the whole game.
All right, Jeff, I'm gonna get to you in a second. Brian, okay. Does it bother you that Bill Weld sold out Gary Johnson and said, "Hey, by the way, I'm gonna still campaign, I guess, but you should probably just make sure Trump doesn't get in office"?
No, here's the problem: is that a lot of people think you elect a man, and that works if you are electing a king. Then yes, it very much matters who the man or the woman is.
I mean, but what he said directly goes against what you just said on the importance of voting libertarian, right?
Sure. Yeah, no. I think that's really unfortunate, and I think that is a case where the same reason, I suspect, Jeff, and I don't want to speak out of turn about what you're thinking. I think any other year, Jeff and I would be almost in perfect alignment, but I think this year the abject terror that Jeff experiences about having a complete sociopath in office is short-circuiting this discussion, where it's like, hey man, we're not having this discussion this year. This year we just got to keep the psychopath with his finger off the button. And I think that Bill Weld is in the same position. Meanwhile, though, it's like 4 years. Like one of two things will happen. Either it'll be Hillary and it'll be business as usual, or it'll be Trump. And then maybe, and people are like, what possible good could come out of Trump? Imagine we get elected a complete psychopath that everybody agrees that we all hate. 2/3 of the country, the day he takes office, we're like, we don't like this. Then there's genuine good that can come of that. You can say, hey, this is what happens when a psychopath takes the wheel. Maybe we should do some checks and balances and limit presidential powers as it was originally intended. Then we can actually see, because right now we've had nothing but progress towards electing a dictator every few years. And we could stop that. And it might take the anger that America would feel if somebody irresponsible like Trump were elected.
Jeff, what do you say?
Well, several things. First of all, I think you're overstating the march toward dictatorship. And I think it's kind of alarmist and not really accurate. I understand the sentiment, and I'm not in favor of carpet bombing without any kind of checks and balances either. Congress did give the president that authority. It's not like he invented it.
No. They had it. First of all, we have not declared a war since World War II. And in an age of technology, we could declare a vote instantly, no matter where Congress is, and get it within seconds. So you can't do the argument that, we got to move fast or whatever. Nowadays, we can declare war instantly, but instead what they do is they do these resolutions where it's like, I would like it if you all had a cheering contest and agreed that this is a good decision, but I'm going to do it either way. And the Congress is totally neutered because they do have the power of the purse. They can elect, they can say, we will refuse to fund your war, but they're not going to do that, because who wants to tell all the troops in Afghanistan, we're not going to pay for your food?
Well, and you're then going to get killed going further because, like, Dick Congressman refused to support the troops. But here,
Right.
let me make the argument, Jeff. You said that this election was different because of the circumstances that surround it. Brian is taking that to another level. He is out this electioning you by saying, no, this election is more important than even just the two people in this minor squabble, because existentially we are drifting further and further off course.
Well, he made the point that what he would like to do is, see one of the two parties destroyed in analogous to how the Whigs fell apart and the Republicans rose from those ashes. I think if that's your goal, it's more likely to happen if the Democrats crush the Republicans, because they're imploding anyway. That what we know as the Republican Party may not continue to exist if Trump and Trumpism is refuted on such a global, such a national scale with such weight and intensity that the Republicans cannot recover from it. All of the sensible Republicans, all the actual conservatives who are adults, won't want to be associated with that kind of childish behavior anymore and will be forced to break off. I mean, I think that's a legitimately plausible situation, much more plausible than, all of a sudden 5% creates real change, I think. But I want to say one more thing real quick.
Yeah, sure.
I know that's how we started this conversation, and it's a very solid point of contention between us. But truly, the things that made me reach out on Twitter and instigate the back and forth that happened is much more about what Brian has advocated in terms of abstaining, not voting at all, which was really the thing that made me feel like I got to reach out to my friend here, because I find that unconscionable. I hate seeing someone with as strong a voice as Brian has, with as many people that listen to it as do Brian, advocate for that, because that breaks my heart.
Brian,
this is really good. Real quick, just to wrap up on a previous point. In 1984, Ronald Reagan got 525 electoral votes to Walter Mondale's 13. That did not.
And by the way, he only lost that one state that gave him 3 votes. It was Walter Mondale's home state by 3%. He was very close to running the table.
It's not comparable to any other election in the history of time.
Sure.
The Republicans are already imploding.
At the time, it was said that the Democrats were imploding, and so like the thesis that a crushing defeat will send somebody scurrying to another party, we've already experienced that, and it didn't happen. So I'm less optimistic than you. What I think,
to bolster that, both parties, we've seen McGovern, we've seen I can't remember the Arizona Republican, Goldwater. We've seen the maverick candidates that jackknifed their party for, I mean, it could be 8 years, it could be 12 years, but they tend to have a longer lifespan.
Yeah, in general, I think what happens is a more viable alternative happens. But I think Jeff cuts to the heart of the matter, because this is a very unpopular opinion I have, it is. I can offer no practical justification for it. You could probably tear me apart for it being a pie in the sky, misty-eyed, perfectionist ideal. But I believe that your vote is your property, and it is your voice, and it's you getting to say what you want for the reasons that you want. And one of the things that you can say is, in a perfect system, we would have another option called none of the above, right? And if none of the above was the most popular election, there would be a rerun where it's like, okay, everybody, you're out, new candidates, let's go again. None of the above won with a resounding 80% of the vote. They're saying Barack Obama gets another 1 year. Meanwhile, we're going to come back and you're going to get better candidates because America resoundingly elected none of the above. We don't have that. So absent that.
What if none of the above won every year or every time?
That'd be a great way for us to keep Barack Obama for a very long time. We can keep on
wouldn't that be a bad thing?
You tell me, would you, if you could right now, thumbs up, thumbs down on another year of Barack Obama, and then in every year have the chance to re-up that by voting none of the above, would you do it?
Yeah, but sure, of course, because he's my guy. But if George W. Bush was in there and none of the above kept happening, like, I'm not short-sighted enough to say, well, my guy's in, so if it happened right now, let's go. But
so Jeff, do you not think that would be then a straining method to get better candidates? You think that would just further divide us, and we would eventually just keep hitting the reset button in perpetuity?
I think that anything that is a vote for cynicism reinforces cynicism.
Okay, this is fascinating because I had always couched your argument as the cynical one, because it says
you're cynical. You're cynical.
You're a puppet.
No, but for the reason, like, to me, the whole angle of like, hey man, don't sit this out. Shut up. Take your bitter pill. I know you don't like her. I know you think she's corrupt. I know you have read indictments and emails. Blah 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 blah. I know you don't want her to be president, but you got to pick the lesser of two evils. You can't just sit there. I know you hate everyone, but you got to do it. That, to me, like, I would feel really guilty being pressured into electing somebody with whom I disagreed because there was an even crappier candidate out there. Because then for the next 4 years, I feel like, oh shoot, I caused this. Every problem, and it's
there's never been a candidate. There's never been a candidate I've ever agreed with 100%. There's no such thing as a perfect candidate for Jeff, or a perfect candidate for Brian. Like, there's going to be things that you have to swallow in order to get closer to what you think we should be doing, right? And okay. This whole like lesser of two evils thing really bothers me because, I mean, I don't want to go into debating Hillary versus Trump because that is just what enrages the whole thing. But yeah. So let's stay on this topic, and you go ahead.
Well, let me ask you a question, Jeff. Is part of the American democracy the nobility of compromise? That you are it's like the point is, yeah, of course we're not always going to agree, but let's take these two jagged edges and we figure out which edge jaggeds toward me the most.
Yeah, I think that is well said, and here is my position as it pertains to this issue from a very macro level. And this is why I think it is not the cynical position. I think the exercise of democracy is about engaging in the process. Is about me as a citizen recognizing that my civic duty is to band together with my fellow citizens and decide what I want my country to represent, how I want to be shown to the rest of the world, the face of my country. Because, as you said, there are checks and balances. The president isn't a king, and I would never advocate for dictatorship. But I do believe that he or she is the face of our nation, is the representative of us to the world. And who do I want representing me? Yes, there are things about Barack Obama that I do not like. Big time. There have been things about every president that I like that has had a problem. There's, as you said, jagged edges all around. But my responsibility as a citizen in my nation is to consider, discuss, relate to my fellow man, relate to my fellow citizen, and engage in the process. The ideal, the spirit of hope and democracy is that by talking, by listening, by learning, by engaging, we all become better. We all speak with a broader voice. My one vote is meaningless in and of itself, but when brought together in harmony with a whole range of other people, with whom I've connected and learned and spoken, now that block of votes has power. That's what fucking democracy is, right? So to say, let's abstain, I think is a tacit endorsement of laziness and a tacit endorsement of disengagement. It says, it couches itself in protest, in saying, well, this is all Travis Shamockery. I'm out. You guys have fun. Well, guess what? You can feel great on your. I'm not talking to you directly, Brian, but I'm saying that.
But even if you were, your sentiment is valid. Keep going.
Yeah, you can stay on your high horse and feel so smug, saying I abstain.
What would they sound like? Would they have an accent? Would they when they were?
They'd be like,
would they...
now I abstain. See, no. But the truth is, what you're really doing is refusing to learn, refusing to participate, and refusing to be a citizen in a democracy. Right? It is. I think laziness and lack of willingness to do the work.
Okay, then let me ask you. Let me ask you one question. Then, is there a line for you for which the edges become too jagged? Like, let's say, hypothetical example, both candidates were like, "Yeah, listen, I'm all for nationalizing all business and putting in curfews, but I'm gonna make curfew at 9:30, and my opponent's gonna make curfew at 9." Like, is there a line for which you're like, all right, I can't compromise with this?
Well, no, in the sense that those two, and that's a very valid question because it's happening in this election, right? There are a lot of issues, too many in my opinion, where the Republicans and the Democrats are too close, right? A lot of people say, well, there's one party really. War is one of those things.
Yeah.
And it's distasteful to me how close both parties are on that issue. But there are so many other issues that separate them. You have to go, okay, so since we can't have any distance on one issue that I'm passionate about, I'm going to have to figure out down ballot or, find some other ways that the checks and balances can work that we can try to attack that issue later. And maybe I can, educate myself about congressmen or senators that maybe can provide some counterpoint to that, although there are very few. But try to work on those issues in other ways and find the differentiation points that allow me to make a still passionate, educated decision with the things that we can actually work
So
with.
everything should happen within the system. And this is not the point. The election is not necessarily the point where we should be making these blanket I can't deal with this declarations. You should do it in our legislature and through all those means.
No, I would actually disagree that not doing something is a sign of apathy. In many ways, not participating in a vote is a very important thing because in a world where the presidential powers are largely defined by their ability to use the so-called bully pulpit and whether or not they have a mandate for their policies or whatever. If you pick the lesser of two evils or whatever, you hold your nose and you vote for somebody whose policies you disagree with, but is not as repugnant as the other candidate, then your vote might make the difference between them barely squeaking by, in which case it's implied that, well, the people have spoken and I'm only barely better than the other guy, versus, well, they've overwhelmingly elected me at a 20% majority, and now I have political capital because I have a mandate and it's clear that the Americans have voted for my policies. And under Jeff's systems, it places people who otherwise might not have voted in the unfortunate position of being part of the justifications for policies with which they disagree. That makes me very, very uncomfortable. I think it's fine for you to say, both of these guys are garbage. I'll not participate in this shit show. I'm going to sit this one out. And it matters on election results day when they say this is the lowest turnout we've ever seen in the history of everything. Candidate garbage barely beat candidate poop scoop by 3 votes. So candidate garbage takes office embattled from day one. And I'm okay with that. If you have 2 garbage candidates, it matters that you don't act like you agree if you don't agree. And
again, Brian, why is it not offensive to care about the future of your country?
hold on. Wait, what kind of softball is that?
I'm
Why is
asking
it-
you. Why? I mean, no, because that's the point. The point is that you are disengaging, right? And that if you disengage, it is less likely that you will engage going further, and therefore you are emboldening everybody that does vote because you are now taking your voice out of the process. So how is that
Not
not
only
an
that-
offensive notion?
Well,
Let me just say,
well, keep in mind, like first of all, I'm not advocating as a first, the first thing I'm advocating is if you don't like business as usual, vote for either third party, right? Pick which of the two third parties appeals more to your sensibilities and go with that, because your vote matters thousands of times more when it comes to a third party. When the goal is to hit 5%, every single vote really does matter. When in the two-party system, 70% of all the votes are wasted votes. 50% of them are going to go to a candidate that loses, in which case it doesn't even matter. The other 20% are going to go to a candidate that was already going to win, and your vote doesn't matter. So realize, if you vote either of the major two parties, there's a 70% chance that your vote is garbage and means nothing. Consider, if you want to have more voices, if you want to break up the duopoly, you can do that by participating. For example, I'm pretty sure California is going to go for Clinton. In California, if you live in California, take it to the bank that California is going for Clinton. So if you go vote for Clinton, you've wasted your vote. If you go vote for Trump, you've wasted your vote. You have the chance to decide, do I believe so much in Clinton that I want her to dominate and then have my voice say, yes, I agree with 100%? Or if you're choosing the lesser of two evils, consider getting a third party up to that 5% point, whether it's the Green Party, whether it's the Libertarian Party. Your vote matters thousands of times more. California will still go for Clinton. Clinton will still be the president, but wouldn't it be great if 6% went to the Green Party and 7% went to the Libertarian Party? And now this was part of what caused there to be other options in this broken, corrupt system that we have.
I have a huge problem with the min-maxing of my vote. I really do. I don't understand why people talk about voting in terms of how I can maximize the power of my vote. I don't think that's what it's about at all. I think it's about a singular moment when you are in that polling booth. What do you believe in? What do you want? Who do you want to be representing you? And now, if that's the third party, that's fine. But it's not about this concept of a third party. I think it should be about the specifics of that person. You happen to really agree with Gary Johnson's positions. I do not. Okay. I do not believe what he's saying or what Jill Stein is saying. Okay. So the idea of like this vague idea of third party being important rather than the specifics, I have a problem with. And I also have a problem with the idea of min-maxing your vote, because it's not about how well, it doesn't matter. Clinton's going, California, so I might as well not even go, because it's about engaging in the process. It's about what do you believe? I believe very strongly that the idea of Trump representing me to the rest of the world is offensive, right? And I want to do everything in my power to prevent that from happening. And if it was up to me alone, I would have to vote Clinton. So that's what I'm going to do, right? I also think that she's actually going to be a pretty good president, but that's neither here nor there.
Let's not get political, Jeff. Come on.
Yeah. But I want to say one more thing real quick.
Yeah.
The thing that you were talking about before, abstaining. Oh yes. Okay. So, fuck, I lost it. Damn it. What were we talking about? Before we got it.
Let me just point out the last poll that we had in California, where both Jeff and I live, was 56 for Clinton, 30 for Trump, 4 for Johnson, and 2 for Stein. It is not uncommon that
so close. Your vote for a third party could make such a difference.
By the way, that is down. That is down. That is down from the last survey, which had Johnson at 10 here in California. It is not uncommon for third-party support to decline as we get closer to Election Day. Statistically, that's usually what happens. It also probably doesn't help when your VP is out there in these streets sniping after you like Bill Weld is. However, let me ask you this, Jeff.
Yeah.
Because you have to acknowledge that the game for a third-party supporter is different than that of a supporter of the major two parties, right? That there is something that is tangibly gained by getting 5% nationally, getting federal matching funds, and automatically getting on the ballot in all 50 states, as opposed to having to go through the very time-consuming and costly effort to do it one by one through petition. So there is a difference. Like, two of these parties have a chance to sit in the White House and hold total power. Everybody else is playing to maybe get a little bit of a seat at the table, right?
True. And if you look at the positions of those candidates and you go, I'm a Gary Johnson man or I'm a Jill Stein man, more power to you. Vote. Vote who you believe in. My opposition to this is in the sense, in this concept of vague third partiness and vague dislike of the two major party candidates. This sort of like, well, they're both bad. Isn't there a third option? I'm protesting, and I have a problem with that. If you look down the ballot and you're like, I believe in the Green Party, I believe in the Libertarian Party, I want them to have a seat at the table, I believe in their platforms, let's do this, then you're already voting that way, right? It's the people who just have this vague sense that both of these candidates are bad, business as usual is bad, and there has been this weird false equivalency through this entire process of, well, oh crap, because Hillary Clinton is this known quantity that for 30 years people have been bitching about. Boy, she sounds terrible. And this other guy's terrible. They're both terrible. It's like, no, they're not both terrible. One is a transcendent terror, and the other has some ambition that seeped through. Like everything that seems to be a complaint about Clinton has to do with her level of ambition and what she's willing to do to get there. Anyway.
I mean, that gets a little bit more into the weeds. Let me ask you guys both this, and we'll start with Brian, because I think part of what has already bubbled up, and as part of your guys' prolific Twitter conversations, is the idea of your role specifically as public figures online, and specifically people who are speaking to audiences. And I would even go one step further and say probably younger audiences, considering your demos for Scam School and the video game industry. What do you guys think what do you define personally your roles are in this entire process? Do you have a moral obligation to express your opinion or to engage people?
I think I suspect that Jeff believes we have more power than I believe we have. And also, as a result, I think Jeff feels a heavier responsibility than I think we do because, first of all, full stop, I am a hypocrite. I tweeted out that, number one, nobody cares who you're going to vote for. Number two, nothing you've ever posted on social media has changed even a single mind. Number three, I'm going to bed, and so should you. I still believe that. However, because I'm a hypocrite.
In fact, he's going to go to bed right now.
Yes, exactly. But my point is just because I'm a hypocrite doesn't mean that I don't have an opinion. And so it's like I'm going to share my opinion at the offhanded chance that it hits the right person at the right time. I don't really believe there's much of a chance of that, but I don't know that I have much of a role, because if you're looking to, a guy who eats fire or a guy who plays video games for your political advice, then I would suggest you need to rethink a bunch of life choices.
Jeff?
Which one of those am I? I'm not clear. Am I the video game guy or the fire guy?
No, I think Brian's both of them. So maybe you are as yet undefined.
Oh, okay. I believe that it is my responsibility to use whatever voice I have to speak out for the things that I believe in. I do not. I mean, it's funny that Brian says this because his audience on Twitter is an order of magnitude greater than mine. So to say that Jeff thinks that our reach is greater, yours is actually measurably greater. But it's not that because I have X number of Twitter followers, I need to say these things. If I had 4 Twitter followers, I would be saying these things, right? And that is the thesis statement for my entire position here is I feel like my civic duty is to engage with my fellow citizens. And Twitter is a pretty good place to do that. But I do it in all walks of my life. I do it interpersonally, with my family, with people I talk to. I try not to avoid the topic of politics. I try to engage with that topic because I feel like this weird uh, disassociation with, that they're all controlling us and fuck it and let's just all give up is destructive and really gets to the core of what I believe in. Give a shit and give more of a shit and keep giving more of a shit, and that if we all gave more of a shit instead of less of a shit, things would be better.
See, I think that's the I think we isolated the disconnect is because it sounds as like when I say if you believe it's all corrupt, then don't participate. I'm not saying that out of apathy or laziness. I'm saying that because like no, you participating matters so very much that you need to think very deeply about what you're participating in. And if you're not comfortable with it, do not do it. That's how much like I think you should care. You should give all the shits, and because of that, that should shape whether or not you feel comfortable participating in this process.
Well, but
and the answer might be no. It might be you say I don't want to give even one vote to somebody who has expressed publicly that she is comfortable continuing the policy of assassinating American citizens without a trial. And that might be your do or die issue. It might be I can't even participate. Maybe your thing is drug laws. You're like the fact that I cannot even imagine giving my one vote to anybody who's comfortable continuing this corrupt, morally reprehensible war on drugs. And both candidates are saying that. If that is your issue, it is a moral and just policy to say, I also disagree with the third parties. I'm just not going to participate. That is moral and just, and it's because you care so deeply about it. What I would never ask someone to do is to compromise on their own morals and say that one thing you care about, nobody cares that you care about it. Shut up, take the least bitter of the two pills. Like that.
But that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that you may be saying that, and I have no doubt that you believe it. And for you, that is absolutely morally consistent. I'm saying the end result of that kind of sentiment isn't what you feel. It is people just disengaging. It is people hearing that and giving them permission to not care. I think honestly, and it's not because you have this big bullhorn of a Twitter following, although that does contribute to it. It is because when we have that conversation as citizens and we say, you know what, I'm not participating. I'm making a moral stand. I'm not participating. The trickle down of that is let's all not participate. Let's all just sit this one out. And guess what? All of a sudden, the things that start happening in the world, the policies, the things that start getting enacted, get focused on the people that do show up. Your abstention doesn't make you more more of a voice in that process. It makes you less of one because those people who need votes care about the people who vote, and they start doing things for the people who vote, which is why so much of our policies are built around people 60 years old and up, because those are the only people that fucking show up at the polls, right? You can abstain and feel so glad about yourself that you're not going to, sign your name to a policy you don't like. But guess what? The end result of that is that more policies you don't like are going to be enacted because they're not targeting you anymore because they know they pushed you out of the process.
Oh, that's interesting. Wow, I hadn't even considered that aspect, like the very act of voting and being of that demographic and proving that demographic votes. But in that case, I mean,
although let me just put out that although that is certainly a valid argument, Barack Obama won in 2008 based on a largely disaffected voting bloc and young voters that he was then able to engage with a very specific message. He was able to reframe a new coalition for the Democratic Party that now looks to be able to carry that party through 3 different presidential elections by way of electrifying the African-American vote and the young vote that, although was solidly Democratic, did not turn out in the numbers that they wound up doing for him. So I think that it is important to point out that dead cable can indeed be relit if politicians look for it, which Barack Obama did to great success.
Yeah, but that's exactly what I'm saying is he spoke to the concerns of people that mostly get ignored because they mostly don't show up, right? And that's kind of what Bernie Sanders is doing, and honestly, that's what the Democratic Party is doing in a large sense with, Hispanic and Latinos. And you saw that after the last election when Romney lost and all the Republicans came out and said, okay, for the next 4 years, all we're going to do is focus on Latinos. And then they became, Trump was like, fuck Latinos, So they're cross purposes, which is why it looks like they're going to lose, is because they're excluding people that show up to vote. And that is the key. Show up to vote.
But show up to vote in increasing numbers, because these were disaffected, low turnout communities that then became higher turnout communities because somebody spoke to them. And I don't want to put words in Brian's mouth, but if his point is, wait, this is, don't just give it away. Wait for your Prince or Princess Charming to show up and say what you want that gets you out to the polls. Then I don't know where you're at cross purposes. But Brian, fill in that point before.
Yeah, no. I think you nailed it right on the head. Specifically, understand, I believe that the vast majority of everybody can, if not on the people, at least agree with the platforms of one of the four major parties that are in the game right now. Right. I suspect that if everything was double blinded, if everybody would go, what's the quiz you could take online for where you belong on the political spectrum? There are quizzes that you could take. I think a lot of you guys would be surprised.
BuzzFeed. Which Disney princess do you look the most like?
Exactly. Yeah. No. But there are quizzes where it'll ask you policy questions and you can answer what you want on policy. And understand this political spectrum is not a left-right. It's a diamond. You have pro-social and or more government involved in social, more government involved in financial aspects. There's also the up and down, the statist versus libertarian paradigm. Yes, my guess is you.
By the way, right now, Brian is advocating for an internet survey to determine your vote. I'm just saying. I just wanted to point that out.
Oh, damn.
My point is that even if you dislike a person, my guess is you can find a policy that you agree with and you can feel good about voting.
And I will say this, that those kinds of polls, and I know the one that Brian's talking about, tend to show that there are far more people who agree with libertarian policies than there are certainly registered libertarians or people who vote for the Libertarian Party. That in general, the idea of greater freedoms and lesser government is something that is statistically
all about how you couch those questions, right? It's like, well, wouldn't it be great to have more money in your pocket from taxes and more freedom and all this stuff? And it's like, well, yeah, but you have to give up the Department of EPA, the Department of Education. It's like, oh, well, fuck that. No, I don't want that. It's all about how those things are posed and what the gives and takes are.
Well, my guess is that everybody has figured out different. My guess is there's a competing market of people making those quizzes, and the one that will be universally acknowledged as the most fair is the one that balances the questions in ways that aren't skewing and all that stuff. And also, I mean, here's the other thing is, and this is also, I think, the unfair marginalization of third parties is. And I don't understand why people are so comfortable with the two-party duopoly that the moment a third party comes in, they find the most extreme end-of-the-road opinion and fight on it. Like, for example, right now, libertarianism and green parties are the only non-interventionist parties out there. If you think it's not great that we're sending our 18-year-old children to die on foreign soil, either of those would be the choice. However, the moment you bring that up, like, how about we stop killing our babies? Then the first thing you hear is like, oh, libertarians, so you just want all the skies polluted, huh? Schools torn down, roads dug up. And it's like, well, I mean, I guess take it to its extreme. That would be a discussion we could have. But for right now, can we just agree that we could stop, killing people, that we could stop raiding, largely Hispanic and Black families for alleged drug raids or whatever? Like, let's start with the parts that we agree with and then go from there. But that discussion never happens because of this instant polarization, this instant idea that, well, this is uncomfortable to me, that it's disrupting this duopoly, and therefore we have to find the weirdest parts of it and act like that's what they're running on. Same thing for the Green Party. The Green Party wants to, it's like, oh, you just think you can magically erase debt. And it's like, look, they know that's not going to happen. That they know that that's not going to be what happens. But if the first thing they do is say we're going to spend less money to invade other places, then I'm okay with that.
I think I think that that's a fair sentiment, but the truth is, if I'm looking at a platform, if I'm looking at a candidate, and that candidate says, I want to destroy the EPA and destroy the Department of Education, I go, I'm not voting for you, pal. I'm sorry. Those things I think are precious to our national.
But again,
All right, well, here, hold on, wait. Before we get
fallacy.
into the relative merits of the EPA and the Department of Education, as much as I'm sure all of our audience would just be delighted to delve into, Jeff, you made the point that this election is unique because, again, from your point of view, from your vantage point, there is somebody that maybe is not perfect for you in Hillary Clinton and somebody that you would be horrified and embarrassed if he took the presidency in Donald Trump. So
Right.
by that scale, if somebody finds Gary Johnson or Jill Stein as less terrible than Hillary Clinton for them, why is that? Why does the scale stop, the sliding scale stop at Hillary Clinton and not go below it into more tolerable candidates for some people?
Like I said, if you genuinely look at those candidates and genuinely like what you see, by all means, vote for them. However, if you're just looking for someone who is not Trump or Clinton, that's not enough.
Can I offer a middle ground here? Because your focus is on the candidate, and that makes sense. But given the fact that it is a fact that none of the current candidates are going to have even the most remote chance of doing it, what if you agree with the policy and you dislike the candidate? Is it not morally just to vote for the policy that candidate represents in order to get it above that 5% threshold so that it can be represented hopefully by a more qualified candidate 4 years from now?
I do not have, in the abstract, I do not have a problem with that. The problem that I have is exactly what Jury was bringing up. This is not, we can't fuck around. This is not the time. I know the problem is everybody goes, well, it's never the time. But this one is particularly not the time. 2000 wasn't the time either. I thought 2000 might be the time. It wasn't the time. The fact that 40% of our country can vote for a clown is horrifying to me. And it is not enough to just have Hillary Clinton win this election. We have to show the rest of the world that we repudiate everything this man stands for. We have to say with a loud voice, no.
Okay, well, here,
Not
let me ask you this, because this is one of I'm very, very proud that we have a conservative, a portion of our listeners that is conservative, and I'm sure that they are yelling at their phone right now that, man, isn't it a coincidence that Jeff thinks that the only times that now is not the time is when there seems to be an insurgent Republican that could take the White House, i.e. in 2000 or this year.
Okay, fair enough. I understand that, and I can sympathize with that. I would not be saying this about Mitt Romney. Okay, I campaigned for Obama. I believed in him.
But that was Obama. The most important election in history. Both parties said it, and they said it in the 4 years before that too.
Listen, I did not want Romney to be the president. I did not think he was a transcendent cartoon terror, okay? I did think that George W. Bush was the stupidest person ever put up for a president in my lifetime, okay? I thought he was going to fuck up the country. Guess what? He fucked up the country. I think I would vote for George W. Bush right now over Donald Trump, okay? I think in those two elections, we put up an incompetent person for the president. And I know that all the Republicans are yelling at me, but here's the thing, and I want to draw a clear delineation between people who have heartfelt, genuine conservative positions and Trump, right? This is a man who's not even a fucking Republican. He's not a Republican. He is using Republicans because he can. Okay, I think George W. Bush was a genuine Republican, but I also think he was a boob. Okay, I think he was a puppet for the people around him, and it's unfortunate that he got us into wars and he fucked up our economy and he did all that stuff. And I feel personally responsible because I voted for Nader, even though I don't live in Florida, right?
Well, like why? It's factually demonstrable that you had nothing to do with that.
I was part of
Nader.
This is my refrain is that I am actively participating in the democracy with my fellow people, right? I don't live next to the people in Florida. They vote differently. They have state legislature that's completely unique to them and policies and all that stuff, right? But I'm part of a conversation that includes them. I'm part of a global mind think that involves all of those people. And it is my responsibility, I believe, as a citizen to engage with that and endorse the things that are most important. And I do feel culpability if my intellectual energy or emotional energy contributes to things that turn out to be pretty terrible.
Brian,
maybe that's a little silly sounding, but I believe it.
Well, no, and especially in a moral aspect, it does matter what you think of what your actions are. You want to know, like did I? Because you obviously have suffered pain from having participated in voting for Nader and feeling like you in some small way contributed to the presidency of George W. Bush. Look, we can go through the entire list of presidents and say like, well, that one was a special case because of this, and this one was a special case before that. Blah 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 blah. There will never be a shortage of elections that are each one a special case for their own special reasons. Each election is a beautiful snowflake. I'm not concerned with individual snowflakes. I am concerned with the blizzard that is going to suffocate our country. This crap is broken. Let's take the long-term view. If you participate in voting for the Crips or the Bloods, you are saying business as usual is just fine, and I'm going to keep on doing it, and we'll just be surprised. Oh, well, what do you know? This year, again, it's a different election. It really matters this year. Because you're right, Jeff, in 2012, we had two generally acceptable candidates. That's great. This year, we don't. This year, we got two garbage candidates. They're garbage candidates for different reasons with garbage policies that are making things worse. And you have the opportunity to say, I want to stop that blizzard. And granted, I'm only going to be one snowflake not participating in it. But if enough of them happen, then maybe we can shift the way things are going.
All right.
Two garbage candidates is where I, it's like saying, hey, what do you want to have for lunch? We're parked here. There's a McDonald's. I don't really like McDonald's. And there's the shit sandwich store where they give you feces on a bun. Oh man, those are both bad. No, they're fucking not. One is McDonald's.
Although understood, and of course, I'm sure we will alight all the hearts and minds with metaphors, but as we always do. But
I will see Jeff's point that I am guilty of making a false equivalency between the two, because you're right. One is in many people's opinions, and I suspect on November, whenever many Americans will validate that one is the more garbage than the other.
Well, sure. I mean, listen, and the Republican Party, 70% of the Republican Party did not particularly like Trump. He ran against a field of 16 and wound up, squeaking out, never facing anybody one-on-one. So I think that there is a lot to look at. If we want to delve into the Trump, maybe that'll be another podcast as we go forward. When he is surprisingly Brexit-style elected president, but I will say we probably should wrap it up here as we are edging toward an hour. I will do another podcast today that will do all our normal mailbag and covering the topics. But I want to thank Jeff and Brian for coming on and talking. Jeff, any final thoughts?
Well, I want to say thank you both. Thank you, Brian, for engaging me on Twitter and for engaging me in this conversation. There is a lot of love. I love you guys, and I love that we can have this kind of a conversation. Justin, I thought you moderated really well. That was fantastic. I hope that we didn't infuriate too many people, and I hope that these kinds of conversations can inspire other folks to engage with those around him instead of just keeping it all in and feeling like politics is off the table for discussion. But I love you guys. I understand your heart is in the right place, and I think that's the most important thing.
Dude, how fun was it that we were able to have this whole conversation while avoiding any I'm not going to say universally, but for the most part, avoiding specifics of this election. I love that this was.
We dipped a little. When you get into literal shit sandwich, I feel like I feel like we delved a little bit.
I also realized that I'm the only one that cursed, and I feel a little bad about it.
No, I joined in. Once you broke that seal, I joined in and started.
Brian, any final thoughts on the spirit of goodwill in this debate?
No, just that Jeff Cannata's the best person on the internet, and it's always hard to argue with Mr. Rogers because he's perfect in every way, and nobody dislikes him, and he's friendly and kind, and all the best parts.
Flattery will get you everywhere.
All right. Well, guys, give out your Twitter information just so anybody who is not following you two can follow you two inevitably when you start yelling at each other on election day.
Oh, man, now I feel like we have an obligation to keep this discussion going. I'm at Schwood, SHWOOD on Twitter. There is no C in Schwood.
I am at Jeff Cannata with 2 N's and 1 T, and it feels weird. It feels like the election is almost already over. It just feels like it's a moot at this point a little bit.
All right, say it. Say it that Clinton's going to win in a landslide. No. Say it.
I will not
say it.
I will
say
not
Clinton's going to win by a Reagan landslide.
Please vote. Please vote.
And I believe Jeff Cannata a very, very well spoken point today, and I'm sure he very much does hold to the idea that if you believe genuinely in a third party, that you should vote your conscience unless you live in Florida, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Nevada, Arizona, or Utah. All right, guys. The email is theyoungamerican@gmail.com. By The Contender, thecontender.us. Music, of course, provided by Valesco and Trop Killers. Follow me at Justin R. Young everywhere and download archived episodes of this show at bonerwars.com. Until next time, some shows talk about politics, others talk about politics. This is the only show that really talks about politics. We'll see you. Well, I'm going to do 2 episodes today, so I'll see you in like 5 minutes. Bye.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.